It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, September 24th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that's getting Jordan Hall's perspective on the Flyers this year.
It's that time of the year.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 20 years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com, and you can win $300 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are going to get to our conversation with Jordan Hall about his training camp thoughts and camp battles and the power play and goaltending and all of it. It was a really fun conversation. I feel like part of it may have inadvertently affected the Flyers versus Montreal Canadiens preseason game. We'll talk more about that game a little bit on tomorrow's show as well. But one thing that we talked about with Jordan, which you're going to hear later in the episode, is about the power play and Owen Tippett specifically, and his lack of scoring on the power play. And lo and behold, Owen Tippett scored on the power play.
He did. That was the lone bright spot on the power play. They did feed him the puck, and he did get that. You know, my big
and
issue,
it was a sharp angle shot too.
It was a good shot.
Yeah.
My big issue with the power play is now they're losing faceoffs and can't even gain possession at times, and that is a big problem.
Yeah, that was one of my big takeaways from this game. Their faceoff percentage was 38.3 overall, and you know it went up above 40 for like half a second there, and then dipped back down. I was kind of keeping track of that, and yeah, that is definitely a sore spot for this team. I thought there were too many fights for a preseason game. I was really annoyed by that.
And if you're gonna have a fight, don't have that extra penalty. That's that's where McDonald kind of made a mistake. He was having an okay game,
right,
but you can't give up that penalty there. Like that was just, you got to learn.
Yeah, at least Delorier did it the right way.
He did,
but
he knows that part of the game. Like he's rarely going to get called for one, So
Yep. He's definitely got that down. Now, goaltending is another thing we're going to talk to Jordan about. And on yesterday's show, we talked about maybe we would see Vladar, and then I wanted to see Bjarnason again. We got the complete opposite with Samerson and Alexei Kolosov, but that's fine. I think, we just weren't sure what the rotation was going to be yet in the preseason. Urson kind of struggled a bit in that one period.
Yeah, it was not good. That's why he only got one period, because he struggled.
Yeah, I was, they could play it off as a planned thing, but no way. I know. And I would say Kolosov looked a lot better. I think, he still had his moments of being a little bit frantic and scared, but I think overall he was a lot calmer. His tracking was better, and
he's still got to work on his stick. He doesn't clear it well enough, and definitely rebound control on some shots still. But yeah, he was better.
Definitely. So it's always good to see improvement like that. And then I would say, the vets were slow. There was definitely some issues there, I would say, except for maybe Travis Sanheim on that one breakaway
Sanheim
he got.
Was terrific on the breakaway. And Couturier was smart, seeing that there was a bad change. The Canadians gave Bump a break. That was fun. But on defense especially, they were slow.
Yeah.
And
I would say
the Montreal forwards really kind of took advantage. All of them, like even their younger guys.
Yeah. And the last thing I would say, as far as big picture things with Alex Bump, I think, he did have some bright moments, but I think he struggled a little bit too. He got the puck take. Yeah. And I think this is going to be a really good game for him in terms of the learning experience. And he can sit down with this game in particular, watch a lot of video and make some adjustments. I think this will be really, really good for him to look back on.
Yeah, and someone like Jet Luchenko was like, okay, I'm not going to mark him that hard because he came back from injury, but he wasn't a factor. He just had a couple of plays.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to wait and see with him. Don't want to judge too harshly again, given the injury factor there. But we're going to talk more about this game on tomorrow's show and any camp cuts that happen as well. In the meantime, let's get straight into our season preview with Jordan Hall of NBC Sports Philadelphia. It is always a pleasure to welcome to the show Jordan Hall of NBC Sports Philadelphia. How are we doing, Jordan?
Rachel, Russ, thanks so much for having me. I'm doing well. The preseason is underway, which means the regular season is getting closer. So we're excited. I'm sure you guys are too.
Yes, absolutely. Now, looking at the roster that GM Danny Briere has put together this offseason, it's one thing to look at it on paper. It's another thing to think about it in reality. So, what is your overall assessment of this team they've put together for this very interesting part of the rebuild?
This is a very interesting part because they do have to get better. They cannot have rock bottom again like they did last season. I don't think anyone's expecting them to be a contender overnight, but the pressure is on to get better, and they made some offseason moves that I think they believe is going to make them better. I do like, Rachel and Russ, that they addressed center. I thought that was the biggest position of need, maybe outside of goaltending. Trevor Zegras has upside. He has top six potential, and I think he was a very good change of scenery candidate, and I thought the trade was pretty productive in the sense that they didn't give up a whole lot there. And then Christian Dvorak, I think, gives them a guy that can maybe even climb into your top six, but ideally he's in your bottom six. There's familiarity with Rick Tocchet. So I thought that was an area they really needed to address. But for me, and I'm curious for your thoughts, the biggest concern in my eyes is goaltending still. Is Dan Vladar really the definitive answer to give Samuel Ersson what he needs? And is that the tandem that's going to give you enough saves? Last in the league in save percentage last season, the year before that, tied for last. I still think both guys have question marks. Samuel Ersson, can he be a number one? Can he last a full season? And Dan Vladar, can he play more than 30 games and be more of a guy that's relied upon and not just a backup? So center, I really liked what they did. Goaltending, I think there's a chance it can be good, but I'm not quite sure yet until I see it.
I mean, I sent something to Rachel. I found an old game piece of mine. I think it was from a rookie game, actually, where Travis Konecny got stoned by Dan Vladar when he was with Boston. So that was funny to find that. I was looking for something else. Look, I like Vladar, but we're at this point now where it's 6 years later, and if you don't really know, then you're kind of sure he's a backup.
Yeah.
So I have to stick with, I think he's a backup guy.
And Russ, do you think he'll be good for Samuel Ersson?
Will he push him, you mean?
Yeah, I think he will be better than Ivan Fedotov and
for
Alexei
sure.
Kolosov were. I think Ersson just felt so much pressure on his shoulders with so much inexperience behind him. I think now there's a guy that will push Ersson a little bit more and almost be like a security blanket in a way.
Yeah, the one thing we bring up on the show, and then I'll let Rachel chime in on that, they have to get over 900 as a save percentage. Even last night, Kolosov couldn't do that. It's just I have to admit, there's some skepticism on my part about that.
Yeah, I think the one thing that Vladar brings that makes me feel really good about the tandem is some predictability. I think that when you looked at Fedotov and Kolosov last year, it was just a total crapshoot whether or not they'd have a good game or not. And Sam Ersson honestly had no idea what his schedule was going to be, right? Whereas I feel like with this tandem, there's going to be a lot more stability and a lot more predictability for Sam Ersson as long as he holds up his end of the bargain here.
I agree. And I think people do forget Ersson had that lower body injury, and he had it like 3 instances early in the season. So I think it was nagging a little bit. He felt pressure to come back. He probably felt good. But then, as you guys know, in hockey, especially with goaltending, some stuff never quite goes away until an off season. So I wonder if he can stay healthy and get off to a really good start and just stay in a rhythm He could have a much better season than he did last year, where I just think the injury really plagued him. And then really the season started to go off tracks a little bit. Fedotov was the backup, then he wasn't. Kolosov was the backup, then he wasn't. I think a cleaner start where he's just healthy could really help him.
Yeah, I just say I think he'll do better. Will he get a 900 save percentage, which has eluded him his entire career? I don't know.
All right, we'll have more with Jordan coming up next.
The NFL season's finally here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. I'll still stick with the Ravens, but they were a little shaky. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
All right, on tomorrow's show, we will talk more about what's going on at camp. We're going to talk a little bit about the game in Hershey against the Washington Capitals coming up, plus answer your mailbag questions. So make sure you get those in. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, send us a message on any of our socials, or comment on our YouTube channel. We're going to get back into our conversation with Jordan Hall. Just a little disclaimer. Anytime you hear Russ say last night when referring to a game, it's about the Islanders game and not the Habs game, based on when we recorded the conversation. Just want to make sure you understand that when you hear what we're talking about. We'll get back into it with Jordan right now. So I know it's early goings here, but Jordan, what's your assessment of Rick Tocchet as the head coach so far?
I've enjoyed him. One thing that has really stuck out is how personable he is with the media, but I think as well with his players. And let's just call a spade a spade. John Tortorella was not super personable. I thought he was super honest with us, and I'm sure he was with his players, but he didn't have that personable side as much. He was much more old school. He came up in a different era and won a Stanley Cup in that era, where I think coaches kind of talked down the players at times. So I don't know if Tortorella really ever developed deep relationships with his players. And I think Tocchet's going to bring a little more of that. I think his experience as an assistant coach really helps in that regard. Whereas the assistant is kind of the good cop, the one that's kind of constantly talking to the players, almost more like friends than they are, boss and player. So I do think he will connect with players a little bit more. And that, I think, has led to players feeling a little more rejuvenated, refreshed, and feeling like there's a clean slate.
Well, I mean, Sean Couturier saying he's had more conversations with Tocchet than he did with Torts is pretty telling. And we kind of knew it was bad. We just didn't realize it was like that. So, yeah, I think that's something. But here's something else, though. You've always heard, like, familiarity breeds content. And so the power play. Okay. I get it. It's just one preseason game. They were 0 for 4 last night. But the thing that stuck with me through camp while I was away in Pittsburgh is they're shuffling a lot of the same deck chairs. I mean, yes, Trevor Zegras is an addition to the power play. No question. But it's almost like there's 4 or 5 guys they're unwilling to take off the power play even for 5 minutes to see in a preseason game with a bunch of different guys what they might have. And I think that's a problem. Like, as an example, for the last couple of years, Sean Couturier hasn't not been that good on the power play. I mean, you can go on the team around the team and find other guys like that too. And so, like, why do you think they are hesitant in experimenting?
That'll be interesting to see how they go into the season with what personnel and how much they try different things. Rick Tocchet said the other day that he thinks a power play can't be robotic. Like, it's got to adjust to every PK that it faces. And so I do think they're going to try to implement different concepts and change things up, because if it's too predictable, it's not good. I think they really want their players to play to their strengths and not think as much. But again, similar to goaltending, it's one of those things where I'll believe it when I see it, if it improves. But I really think they're running out of the excuses for personnel, because as you mentioned, Russ, they added Trevor Zegras, who has all kinds of power play strengths. Matvei Mishkov's going into year 2. I think they have the talent. It's really going to come down to coaching. And Rachel and Russ, I'm curious for your thoughts. I thought it was interesting that Rick Tocchet told us Yogi Svikowski and Jay Verady will both coach the power play. Have you guys seen that before where there's like
No.
two coaches?
No.
No, it never happens. And again, it's just weird. Like, I'm looking at Bobby Brink's power play numbers, right? So 2 years ago, he had 3 goals and 2 assists. Last year, he had 2 goals and 2 assists. What has he done to earn power play time over checking out other guys on the team? That's where I think, remember when Rick said, hey, Keith Jones and Danny Briere are giving me recommendations on the lineup. Like me, that kind of seems like a Danny Briere recommendation. Let's put Bobby Brink on the power play and see if he's going to do this or not. And maybe at some point, Tocchett's going to have to pull him off. Like I wouldn't have 2 coaches for the power play. One of my criticisms last year, Jordan, was you can't have a whole fleet of coaches or former players telling a team what to do with the power play. It doesn't help it, because I think we've seen this. Everybody knows how to play a power play, like in hockey. They do. They're most of the guys are used to it. They do it their whole careers. But we've also seen where once there are struggles and it kind of gets set in there as a mindset, it's hard to break it.
And I think that part of the problem goes hand in hand with the lack of finish that this team has, even just 5-on-5. And you could have the best power play system in the world and be the best power play passers in the world. And if you don't have the shot, like, it doesn't matter. And I think that's part of it, is that the problems finishing and the problems with their shots for several players that should be key on the power play. Now, again, like Zegras had that problem in Anaheim, right? So we need to make sure that doesn't bleed over into his time with the Flyers here. Michkov is okay, but like Owen Tippett ostensibly should be a key contributor to the power play, but his shot has been garbage. So like how do we improve the power play if the shot isn't there to begin with?
And one thing I've really noticed with Rick Tocchet, and I think he's going to really harp on this early, is to shoot. He has said numerous times. The other day with Trevor Zegras, he said he wants to see Zegras attack. And on the power play, he mentioned that the best power plays break pressure and attack. And he said, if we have a grade A look, shoot it. So I think he has probably watched the Flyers in the past and has seen a ton of pass first guys. Just too much passing, and no one really with almost the moxie and the courage to just be selfish and take a shot. And I really think he's going to harp on that, even for a guy like Trevor Zegras, who loves to pass, loves to facilitate. I think they're going to encourage him to attack, make plays, shoot the puck. Because sometimes that shot is as good as a first pass. I really think they're going to try to do that early. Now, how much it works and how much guys can kind of flip their mind into shoot rather than pass, we'll see. But I think that will be something they emphasize.
Yeah, I mean, Matvei Michkov will not have a problem, but
yeah,
some of the other guys.
I am not worried about him in the least.
But as an example, Owen Tippett, 3 years ago, 8 power play goals. 2 years ago, 5 power play goals. Last year, inexplicably 0. Yeah. I'm not even sure if I've ever seen a guy who is a starting guy on a power play come up with 0 goals on a season. He's got a good enough shot on the power play where even if it's power play 2, where I feel like they have to feed him for a while and see if he could do it. If he can't, just take him off. Like, doesn't matter how good his shot is. If it doesn't go in, it doesn't go in. Like, I think they have to be very critical about some of these guys and really find out, because once in a while you could find a guy that surprises you on the power play.
And one of the other things that we've talked about on the show, but curious what your take is on this, Jordan, is that the Flyers have not had a very good net front presence since Wayne Simmons. And I firmly believe that. And in order to get those dirty goals on the power play, the rebound shots, you need that guy. And, even James Van Riemsdyk, I'll give him like half the points, right, of Wayne Simmons, right? So I just feel like that is also the missing link here, is that they just don't have that net front deflector rebound guy.
I think that's super fair. I really have not seen anyone really do it consistently since Wayne Simmons as well. And I don't even think they've really developed a really good point man either.
No,
the last one I can remember being very good at it was Shane Gostisbehere.
Yep.
And that's been a while. So there's just no consistency in personnel. Like, I have 3 big questions. Where do they put Michkov on the power play? Do they try to work him a little lower below the net? Where do you put him? can they develop a consistent guy at the point defensively? Like, I think they have the candidates, but no one's really taking it the bull by the horns. And then who will be the net front guy? Who can really consistently play around that area and get some garbage goals or even be creative in that area? I just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I think it would be really interesting if they could get Michkov and Forster on the same unit, like presuming Forster's healthy, and rotate them so that they're alternating between being behind the net and in the slot. Because I really think they could confuse other teams by not being consistent in which is which, and other teams having to adjust to that. I think that's one solution, but again, that requires a healthy Tyson Forster, because I think he's got the physicality that he could do it, and Michkov has the quickness and the hockey IQ to get in the open space.
So Jordan, you talked about shots, and I looked it up. I didn't use last year's Vancouver Canucks because they had locker room problems, all kinds of problems. But I went back to 2 years ago and looked at how many shots were created from their defensemen, because Rick Tocchet likes to do that. And that top pairing had around 724 shots attempted between Quinn Hughes and Philip Hronek. Now, I understand there's no Quinn Hughes there. We all know that. But you'd have to take 3 Flyers defensemen in their best years, and maybe you'd get close to that number. But even just last night, as an example, and good for, Adam Yinning taking 3 shots, but they had something like 7 shots for their whole defense. There were 3 defensemen. Zamula didn't have a shot on goal. And they may have taken shot attempts. I don't get those stats for preseason. Andre didn't have a shot on goal. Juleson had 1 shot on goal. Like, it's just, they have to be able to do that. If it doesn't start from the blue line, how do they expect to get the offense? Michkov can't carry a whole team. And even like in preseason, I know it's a long question, right? You can fall asleep. Even between preseason and last night, like, they're still not generating enough offense, in my estimation.
I agree. They need more offense from the blue line. And that's why I think Cam York will be huge this season. Not a make or break guy, but will he be the guy that they drafted to do this type of stuff? Push the envelope, move the puck up ice himself, create offense. Now, I do think he fought his confidence a lot last year because of injury and really not having the trust and faith from John Tortorella. Can he be that guy that starts putting up points? I think he's a better defenseman than a lot of people thought he would be in terms of the defensive side. But I always thought, had the ingredients to be that puck-moving defenseman, to create offense. And I really think he'll have more responsibility this year and more leash from Rick Tocchet. I think he needs to be that guy because I don't think they quite have those types of playmakers on the back end, or guys that can at least do it consistently. Like even Travis Sanheim, you see it in glimpses, and then there's times where he doesn't always provide it. They're going to need guys like that. And, of course, Jamie Drysdale in a contract year who has been touted as this puck-moving, quick, great skating guy. We haven't seen him stay healthy consistently enough, and we really haven't seen him play that style consistently enough.
All right, we're going to wrap up with Jordan Hall coming up next.
Like, there has to be a shot creation guy from somewhere, right? And it can't be a forward, really.
Yeah, they need more offense from their defense, and I think that will also help them play less defense.
Right.
I feel like so often they had to play.
Yeah.
That sounds crazy, Jordan. What are you thinking?
Exactly. I mean, why are Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar so good? Like, they're not these big, heavy hitting defensemen.
No,
because they don't have to.
Yeah, they're generational talent, and I'm not saying the Flyers need to get one of those too, but
no, it's hard. I get that.
If they can have guys play confidently with the puck, I think that will go a long way in what they want to do. I know Rick Tocchet will probably get criticized until he shows he can do it here, is not having a Quinn Hughes. Like, I think a lot of people are like, well, he had a Quinn Hughes. Any coach would succeed with a Quinn Hughes, but he'll probably have to fight that narrative a little bit early on.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we get to talk about the young kids on the team and the prospects. Like, what do you see as the camp battles that are emerging and who might have an actual shot at making the Flyers roster?
For a while now, I've really thought Alex Bump has the best inside track to making the roster. I think the Flyers have really liked his progress. 2 years at Western Michigan, over a point per game player, wins the national championship. He's got some confidence to him, so I don't think training camp and the preseason will be too big for him. I think he's going to be up for the challenge. And he obviously plays a position where there might be the most openings on the wing, where the most, that's the biggest number of positions the Flyers have in the lineup, of course. So I do think Bump has a really good shot if he can just look comfortable out there, maybe show some offense. And he's a guy that I get a sense will be better around NHL talent. I think he'll complement guys pretty well. And I wouldn't rule out Nikita Grabenkin, who I think was really good in the rookie games, has some NHL experience, played with the Maple Leafs last year, and I think is really knocking on the door. So those two, Grabenkin and Bump, I think have a very good shot. But I wouldn't rule out a guy like Rodrigo Abels, who I think got off to a great start in the preseason. He might be the guy they have to leapfrog, because I think he could potentially play in the bottom six opening night on the wing or at center. So to me, like a Bump or a Grabenkin, they have to unseat probably an Abels or a Nicolas Deslauriers. And I think they'll have to force the hand a little bit of the Flyers.
I almost forgot Nick Deslauriers is on the team until you said that.
Yeah, so those are two I'm really looking at that I think have a really good shot to open some eyes. I think Jet Luchenko maybe has an outside shot. Not quite sure, though. I wouldn't surprise me if he goes back to junior hockey, which I don't think.
Do you think they'd wait, though? Do you think they'd pull a Shane Wright and kind of like just have him kind of be with the club and play every once in a while and then eventually send him off to World Junior Camp and then hope that maybe Guelph gets tired of not having him and trades him? Like, do you think that it might go that route?
It's possible, especially given they kind of did that last season. They kind of kicked the can down the road a little bit by keeping him here.
Right.
And Russ, it does seem like the big thing is I'm not saying the Flyers are definitely upset if he went back to Guelph, but it seems like they wouldn't mind if he was on a better team.
I mean, they could voice their opinion. I mean, and they could call their GM and say, we're going to keep him if you guys don't want to move him. I mean, they already named another captain, so I don't know why they wouldn't be open to it.
Yeah, Rachel, how much do you think that might play into the Flyers' decision? Is they maybe feel like he might develop better up here than with a junior team that has, quite frankly, just struggled?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been with Russ on this for a while now, that he needs to be on a different junior team if he goes back, or like wait it out until World Junior Camp, because at least that is a more elite level peer environment for him to train and play games in, temporarily. But yeah, I just, with Jet, I need to see more of him. Like, obviously with the minor injury, as we've been told, we haven't seen him yet in camp this year. And until I see him in like 2 or 3 games, I don't even want to say for sure what I would do with him. But he's definitely, under consideration. But I think your point about Abels is a really good one, and as far as who could make it, because the flexibility in position and the fact that we've seen him do both already, like last season. And he's fine in a bottom 6 role on this team for this season. I think, beyond that, that's a question mark to me. But at least for this season and this part of the rebuild, I think he's absolutely fine as a bottom 6 forward that you can really plug and play wherever you need him to. And there's a benefit to that.
Yeah, and then you're really not rushing an Alex Bump or a Nikita Grabenkin into like a third line role.
Right.
I think the Flyers maybe view those guys as top 6 talents that probably need to play on a second line at the lowest. But it would be curious to see how they would feel about those guys in a third line setting. Whereas Abels is like a perfect third, fourth liner that you could, like Rachel said, plug and play, move around. And you would, I think.
He buys you time also, because there's nothing, when you talk to John Snowden, I mean, he talked about Alex Bump getting frustrated when he was in the AHL a little bit. And so, like, I don't want the guy frustrated in the NHL, and I think there's a chance that would happen. So if you do that and those players get sent down and, Oliver Bonk, assuming we'll go the same route, although we're a little worried about a potential injury there, it buys you time. These players all buy you time. and this way these guys can really get up to speed. I said this on another show, and I don't know how you feel about this, Jordan and Rachel. You could chime in. I didn't say it on our show yet. I feel like a player needs to prove he's too good for the AHL before you give him that NHL job.
Yeah, I think that's a good mindset to have for sure. And maybe Bump thought he would and was hoping he would do that in that stint. I think that's a big reason why he wanted to go down to the Phantoms, was to play some playoff hockey at the end of last season and really compete for his NHL debut in camp this season. And I know he did pretty well, and obviously the Hershey series not as well.
No,
the offense kind of dried up for him.
Right. Well, Hershey figured him out, and they put 2 guys on him.
And I think that will be the biggest thing he has to prove is, can he consistently take contact, keep the puck on his stick, not be pushed off the puck like he's a kid. Like, he's going to have to show he can play against men consistently enough. I thought I saw that in the rookie game pretty well, but that's a rookie game. It's not quite the preseason or the regular season in the NHL.
What do you think about starting the season off against Florida?
Not a bad way to start, right? I know it won't be Florida's banner raising night because I think they open against.
They have a game first, yeah.
Yes,
right.
So at least the Flyers don't have to go in and
they don't have to wait that long for that, right?
Right.
Wait through that.
But I think that would be a great test early. Get the 2-time defending champs, and really, I think that might help with the nerves a little bit if the Flyers are at all nervous. There's really nothing to lose. I don't think anyone's really expecting them to go in there and beat Florida. And interestingly, they played well against Florida in John Tortorella's 3 years here.
Yeah,
I know it's the regular season and not the playoffs, but they actually fared pretty decently against Florida. So maybe that continues.
Yeah, and I think it helps getting those games over with earlier in the season, that they don't have to really think about them as much later on if you get two of those games done with. So I think it's fine. I think it'll be a good test for the Flyers. And a lot of teams kind of outplay themselves early in the season because you're still figuring things out and teams haven't quite settled in yet. So there's a lot more opportunity in those cases, in my opinion. But I think, that's a good way to ask you, Jordan, what's your overall prediction for the season? And where we'll be, heading into the trade deadline.
Big question. And I can't have them in the playoffs this season. I just can't. I really needed to see it happen first. Last year, I thought they were actually going to get over the hump. I thought they really took those necessary strides in year 2 under John Tortorella. I thought Mishkov coming in was going to serve as almost a huge free agent addition. And I thought they would have gotten enough in net to get in, and I was proven wrong. I think they will be more competitive. I think they could absolutely get better under Rick Tocchet and maybe surprise a little bit and definitely be in it. But I still worry about the situation in net. I really need to see if Ersson and Vladar can be that tandem to give them enough. I think Tocchet's going to do a lot of really good things, especially with the forwards. I think they have a good staff. I think defensively they'll be okay. Goaltending is still a concern for me. So I do see them taking strides, and I think they'll give Danny Briere some good decisions at the trade deadline, but I just don't know if they're a playoff team yet, especially when the Metropolitan Division I don't think will be an easy one. I think a lot of teams could be getting better, like the Rangers. Columbus, I think, is getting better. The Devils, of course, will be there. So I don't think
the Atlantic's probably going to have more playoff teams than the Metro too, so that would limit a spot. I looked at it this way. I did a show that hasn't aired yet, but I'm going to say it on this show. FanDuel had them at 81.5 points, and I picked them for 82.
Okay.
I could see them getting a few more points. FanDuel also had the Penguins at 74, and I don't see them getting to 74. Unless they got Carter Hart in net, I don't think they're getting to 74. So I think they're getting less. So I think there are some points to be had. And so, yes, in the point side, I think they'll improve, but I don't think they can improve enough to be a playoff team. I don't even know if they'll be in it. And the thing is, I know what they kind of went back and forth on what would happen at the deadline. I'm sorry, but if you're even 5 points out, I think you still need to make moves for the future. I think, especially if the Atlantic's shaping up the way you think it's going to shape up, and your chances are really almost nil, because
Like,
what
you
we
got to
do,
get in one of those top 3 slots in the Metro division, because
you have to
the
be
Atlantic's
in
just
one of
going to
them or
hose
be a
you
point
for the
out
rest
of it
of the
to not do a move. Because I feel like
Right.
otherwise you are not helping yourself in what looks like a really good draft. And so, yeah, I just feel like you have to still do that. I know they're a little open to it, but it seems like they're less open to it, Jordan.
And they came out the other day. Keith Jones said that they're in growing mode. They're not really in selling mode anymore, unless they have to be. And maybe they will have to be at the trade deadline. If things don't go the way they hope in terms of taking strides, they will have to make moves for the future, as I think they should. But that would be highly
like, as an example, if Risto's healthy, like, you have to sell him, even if you're doing well. You have enough defensemen on this team. Like, wouldn't you sell him anyhow?
And I think they learned that lesson last year.
Right.
My first thought that came to my head was when they held on to him, I thought it was a gamble because of his injury history and how he had really been banged up throughout his entire career here. And he had stayed healthy, and he was probably playing his best hockey as a Flyer. I thought that was the time to move him. They held on to him. He still has a couple of years on his deal, but now he needs to get healthy again and really prove he can play at that level again. And I'm sure some teams will have their eyebrows up a little bit with concerns about his arm. He's gone through this ruptured triceps tendon twice.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a history now. So Russ, I'm with you. And they could be in a tough spot if they're kind of hovering around the playoff race, because they kind of vow to their players that they're about growing. But if you're a fringe playoff team, why not make more moves for the future? It'll be a tough spot.
I mean, we've seen some teams stay in it, even if you make moves. It's not unprecedented.
Yeah.
So if you're able to do that, I think you still have to help yourself.
Yeah, and especially if you get, a player in return, right?
Right.
That, like, moves doesn't have to be a salary cap dump. Moves can
No.
be moves,
Yeah.
right? So I think there is opportunity there as well. But yeah, it should be a very interesting season ahead. Jordan, thanks once again for joining us. Where can people find you out there?
Thank you so much for having me. Always great to be on. People can find my work at NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com and on my Twitter, or if you want to call it X, at JHallNBCS. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it and look forward to seeing you both around the rink.
All right. Once again, thanks to Jordan Hall of NBC Sports Philly for joining us. Always a good time. And I appreciate the back and forth with him. He asked us questions too, right?
It was like a good round table. It was really productive, I felt.
Yeah, I really think we all have a handle on what's going on with the team right now. So always good to chat with Jordan. That'll do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. We will be back tomorrow. And as a reminder, we always want to hear from you. Send us those mailbag questions in via any of our socials. You can email us at lockdownflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen. Today, for your next listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. It brings you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with local coverage you love from Locked On. I'm on the Friday show. You can find it on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.